Sitting with her running, my
Adaora blinked her eyes open and found an old dusty journal, cradled in her hands. As she flipped through its brittle pages, she was transported into the forgotten past, unveiling deep buried secrets about Otuga waterside. Long ago, Otuga was a haven of peace and prosperity. But that harmony came at a dark, bloody cost. There was once a taboo covenant tied to the river, a deal no one dared discuss aloud, yet everyone silently upheld. Each year, the river demanded 12 virgins to purify the land, maintain peace, and usher in prosperity. Back then, no one in Otuga lived in lack. It was either you were comfortably average or dripping in riches. And so every year, mothers clothed their daughters in white, preparing them for the sacrifice. Though it broke their hearts, it was never easy, but fear silenced their defiance. Some women hid their daughters in neighboring villages, hoping the river wouldn't trace them. But the daughters of Otuga could never hide. The river always found them. On the night of the ceremony, the chosen girls, wrapped in white cloths, hair adorned with cowries, silently walked to the river's shrine. At midnight, a ghastly looking woman would rise from the waters, dragging the girls into its depths. Their cries echoed into the night, but it changed nothing. Their fate was sealed. No one ever knew if they lived or perished. Their mothers would sob quietly as their children vanished beneath the waters. Some prayed never to birth daughters. Yet while women mourned, the men celebrated, because with each year's offering, the land flourished and foreign investors flooded the town. This tradition continued until one year a rebellion began. It started with a few brave mothers who refused to release their daughters. Then the local church joined the resistance. On that sacred night, the women sheltered their children within church walls, a place they believed no river spirit could trespass. And it worked. Gradually, girls stopped walking toward the river. Instead, they walked into schools, became educated, and contributed to Otuga's growth. The men soon joined the movement. Eventually, the covenant was broken. The river shrine was abandoned, but those who dared visit the waters afterward were never seen again. 2 years after the river park was defied, an 8-year-old girl named Ibube vanished. Despite a thorough search, only her tiny slippers were found, one lodged in the mud, the other drifting at the river's edge. Some suspected drowning or abduction, but no one realized the river had begun plotting its revenge. Adaura's hands trembled as she closed the journal. What mess have I stumbled into? She asked herself. Why did I ever come here without knowing the truth? And what's my place in all this? No one was around to answer. Still, Adaora continued running her thriving business, pretending all was well. For a while, everything seemed fine. Her hair studio, Adaora's Touch, remained the most sought after in Otuga and beyond. There were no reports of issues with her wigs until strange events began unfolding. Her loyal customers suddenly vanished. First, it was a few, then many. She assumed they'd relocated or gotten busy, but every time she tried calling, their lines were either off or unreachable. Oddly, her shop remained full, but now with unfamiliar clients who only bought wigs and never returned. One hot afternoon, a woman barged into her salon barefoot, a wrapper slipping from her waist, tears streaming down her face. My daughter wore one of your wigs and disappeared, she screamed, clutching Adaora's wrist. I begged her not to leave that night. She said something was calling her by the water. Adaora stood frozen in disbelief. Then she snapped, What does my wig have to do with this? Please don't destroy my business. Leave now. But deep inside, Adaora knew something wasn't right. That night, thoughts consumed her. Should I shut down and run? But if I do, I'll be broke again, begging for scraps. She drifted off into uneasy sleep. In her dream, she saw her former clients, each wearing one of her wigs, walking slowly toward the river. They looked peaceful, eerily calm, as if under a spell. No screams, no struggle. She awoke gasping, choking, like someone drowning. yet her bed was dry. The next morning, her eyes caught the silver box her friend Zuri had given her. Curious, she picked it up and traced its velvet lining. Her nail caught a tear in the fabric and she gently pulled. To her shock, a damp wooden scroll slid out from a hidden compartment. It was soaked in a dark, fishy smelling substance. She unrolled it carefully. Drawn on the scroll were 12 faceless women, each wearing different wigs, walking in a single line into a vast black river. Her heart raced. It was the same vision she dreamt of the night before. Frightened, she tucked the scroll back and tried to calm her nerves. Later that day, after finishing a client's hair, Adaora stepped outside to dispose of trash. Then she heard it. Adaora, Adaora, it's me, Madame Enira. She froze. Turning slowly, she saw Madame Enira, one of her regular customers, standing waist deep in the river. What are you doing there? Adaora asked, stunned. Madame Enira smiled gently. I'm here to welcome the others. They're coming. I just stopped by to greet you. What do you mean, others? Adaora asked, panicking. Before she could finish, 10 more of her former clients approached, dressed elegantly in long wigs, walking toward the water in silence. Adaora called their names. No response. They followed Madame Enira, who now had a glistening fishtail, and disappeared into the river. Terrified, Adaora dropped everything, ran back inside, grabbed her keys, and fled. She didn't go home. She booked a hotel and invited some friends. She couldn't sleep alone that night. But this was only the beginning. Strange occurrences spread like wildfire. Children, especially girls, began vanishing. Men cried for missing wives. The whole town was on edge. It began with a young girl named Ifunanya, who left to buy food and never returned. Panic gripped Otuga. By 6 p.m., women no longer stepped out. Only one person watched quietly, Mama Kanayo. She had been observing since Adaora opened her salon and knew what was really happening. She waited patiently for the right moment. A month later, Adaora returned to her salon. She'd vowed never to go back, but curiosity won. As she prepared to close for the evening, there was a knock. Thinking it was a late customer, she opened the door, then staggered back. It wasn't Zuri. It was the queen of the river herself. Her body was a haunting blend of woman and mermaid. Her skin shimmered like wet glass, and her eyes, vast as the ocean's depths, pierced through Adaora. Without a word, the queen grabbed her and dragged her into the river. Adaora regained consciousness underwater. She was no longer fully human. Her legs were gone, replaced by a gleaming tail. Around her sat women with bald heads. She recognized many, Zuri included. Even the missing girl, Ebube, was there. The queen emerged from her grand chamber. Well done, my child, she said. You've served me well, and now you will be rewarded. She handed Adaora a large black nylon bag. These wigs are sacred, made from the hair of my servants. Go and distribute them among the women of Otuga. Once they all wear them, they will be mine. The men will suffer until they beg for mercy. I once blessed this land. They betrayed me. Now I shall rule them completely. Adaora, trembling, accepted the bag and left. The next morning, just as she prepared to carry out the task, Mama Kanayo stood in her path. My child, she said, why have you chosen to become an agent of evil? What will you gain by delivering all the women of Otuga into bondage? Shocked, Adaora asked, How? How do you know? I see beyond the physical, Mama Kanayo replied. Since the day you opened this place, I have watched. She demanded the wigs. Adaora handed them over. Mama Kanayo took them to her compound and tried to burn them, but they refused to catch fire. Every flame she lit went out. Realizing the spiritual resistance, she brought out her anointing oil and prayed fervently, sprinkling the oil over the wigs. After 10 intense minutes of prayer, the wigs burst into flames. This is only the beginning, she warned. The battle isn't over. That night they both slept in a church. Meanwhile, under the river, the queen was enraged. The wigs were her final weapon. Furious, she vowed to confront the community herself. The next morning, whispers flew. Strange beings were seen near Adaora's salon by the water. Half the town rushed to see, but fled in terror. Mama Kanayo knew the time had come. With Adaora and a team of powerful ministers, she marched to the river. The queen rose, bigger, darker, and more monstrous than ever. A long battle began, prayers versus demonic power. After a long fight, Mama Kanayo stepped into the water herself. She began reading verses from her Bible aloud. The queen screamed in agony, her body twisting violently, until suddenly she shrank into a tiny fish. Mama Kanayo picked it up, stepped out, anointed it, set it ablaze, and buried the ashes behind her home. Immediately, the spell broke. The captured women, including Zuri and Ibub, returned to their human form. Out of nowhere, Adaora's touch salon caught fire and burned to the ground. Adaora later relocated to Abuja to start life anew. But 2 weeks later, Mama Kanayo was found lifeless in her home. A note beside her that read, "I stayed this long just to set Otuga free. Thank you so much for watching. Stay blessed."